But for now, that's the end of it. I think it's the end of it. And I don't see any other mechs that are bug-based name. I missed one. Yes, we return to the BugMech series. I was just doing research on another thing when I stumbled across this. The Arana. In Spanish, that means spider or arachnid. I did say there were probably going to be mechs with bug names that with different language, and then guess what? That's one. Here's one. Probably more. But this is the only one I know of right now. Right? And I would never notice this if it weren't for the Arana Batala from Crossbone Gundam. This is like a weird cross-universe dot connection thing going on here. So anyway, we now return to a BugMech. Problem. This thing doesn't have much lore at all. And no variants too, so I can't just do a video about that, but this thing standalone. So what's my solution? Space Spain. Let's rewind time to sometime around 2380 on the planet Terra. The hegemony was only about 7 decades old at this point. The modern powers of the Innisphere were barely existent at this time, if at all. The Terran hegemony was built on democracy. However, as time went on, the power base slowly and eventually came under the control of a powerful few, bringing back a form of feudalism. This phenomenon was not only happening on Earth, but also to many other interstellar nations. The people of the Iberian Peninsula, that's Spain and the other one, was staunchly Republican in nature. They rejected the course humanity as a whole was taking, and also did not like the fact that the local power base on Terra was concentrated only in North America. The Castilian movement was soon created. Followers of this movement, ranging from the lowest citizens to the highest officials, sought to leave Terra to establish their own nation-state somewhere in the stars based on Republican values. The search was difficult. Many of the potential planets they had found were quite expensive, to say the least. The travel cost alone would be high, but to buy the planet outright was impossible. The movement seemed to be doomed until 2381, when a scion from the Chafin family, one of the richest of the time, was caught in Spain committing a heinous crime. Mountains of illegal intoxicants and several dead bodies were discovered. The Chafin family amassed their fortune through their extensive colonial real estate holdings. In an out-of-court settlement, the family gave up the location of a cluster of planets they had discovered, located far away from the Innisphere, in the deep periphery. And so, with not only 1, but 9 planets under their ownership, the Castilian movement loaded up their gem ships with people and supplies and began the over a year travel towards their new home. Upon arrival, the planets Asturias, Cordoba, Granada, León, Castile, Aragon, Navarre, Valencia, and Galicia were colonized. And on 17th March 2392, Nueva Castille was formally established. Nueva Castille was a nation made by Republicans for Republicans, and yet it itself became the one thing it sought to escape. Over the course of 3 centuries, the central government's power eroded, while powerful elites became stronger. By 2637, the central government had collapsed, leaving the Castilians at the whim of the land-owning nobles and their petty squabbles. It seems that no matter how hard we try, we humans are seemingly always doomed to be at the whim of a powerful few. Contact with the rest of humanity was severed almost immediately after they had first settled on this cluster, leaving the Castilian isolated in their little utopia. This did save them from the horrors of war that had been happening in the sphere, but it came at a cost. The technologies they had brought with them eventually began breaking down, with limited means to repair or replace them. This stymied their development. Infrastructure was lacking. Education also suffered, with most schools eventually only offering farming curricula. They still had some industrial capabilities as they were still able to produce firearms, cars, and even planes, but these facilities were few and far between. This once nascent republic truly had become a feudal society. Their mundane agricultural lives continue as peacefully as they can be, with rival petty lords seeking to outdo each other for another 200 years before their biggest threat arrived. In 2830, an unknown jump ship arrived in Granada, seeking an audience with the many ruling lords of the cluster. The diplomatic representatives of the newcomers were sent down with a contingent of battle mechs. It was the first time any Castilian had ever seen these harbingers of destruction. The newcomers asked for the right to settle on their lands, but while also retaining their own independence. Castilian nobles largely opposed this, but did recognize what these newcomers, once they dubbed the Umayyads, after the Umayyad Caliphate that had conquered the Iberian Peninsula in a time long in the past, could bring them, particularly their military. A deal was struck with some nobles, assenting to their demands in exchange for their military prowess. Now embedded, the Umayyads, who originally wanted to be called the Republic of Granada before adopting the name of the ancient caliphate, began their bid for control over the entire cluster. They fomented dissent among the Castilian nobles, eventually leading to an uprising of nobles seeking to break away from Nueva Castille and join the caliphate. Over the course of 20 years, the caliphate slowly conquered 90% of the cluster, leaving Asturias as the remaining Castilian world. Now, you might be wondering, how did a bunch of farmers fight a nation with battle mechs for that long and still exist? The caliphate, which was later revealed to be former SLDF personnel escaping the clans when they invaded the Pentagon worlds, only numbered in the hundreds. They brought mechs with them, yes, but they could not make any more. Their invasion was more of a hearts and minds campaign than an actual war. Fighting did happen, but it was not like huge battles everywhere. At most, it would be small skirmishes of infantry vehicles and maybe the occasional mech or two. But just like the Castilians from before, all this advanced technology they had would eventually break down with no replacements available, blunting their advance significantly. It doesn't help that the nobles who sided with the caliphate were doing their own thing in the background. This gave the Castilians enough time to gather themselves for a counteroffensive. First, they built their own mech. By bribing Umayyad technicians and recovering destroyed battle mechs, the Castilians were able to reverse engineer the technology and build the Reconquista battle mech to lead their troops. The battle mech was very primitive for its time. Built on a 75-ton rated Iron Core 1 chassis, it uses a Fury Turbine's 180 internal combustion engine from a genset to power it. This thing. This gave it a maximum speed of 32 km per hour, blistering speed. It is armed with a Vaganza del Rey Autocannon 10, which was an upscale Castilian AC-5, which itself was a clone of an Umayyad design. It is also armed with a Vaganza del Rey LRM-10 and a 25mm Furia del Vulcan machine gun. These weapons are aimed with the unreliable Standard Track 1 computer with communications facilitated by a Standard Track 1 radio. It is only cooled down with 7 heat sinks and covered head to toe in 17.5 tons of primitive ironhide heavy armor. Being the first mech that a wholly underdeveloped nation created using ramshackle parts that they cloned with their barely capable industrial power, the Reconquista, when compared to contemporary mechs of the time, was completely obsolete. Mimir technology was something they had limited knowledge of. The ones they had created for this mech were of low quality and tend to break. In fact, most of its internal parts tend to do so too. The Reconquista averaged about 150 kilometers between breakdowns. If conditions were perfect, they could do 600. This is due to the limited industrial nature of Nueva Castille, which in turn means that quality control wasn't something the Castilians did. Every single part was hand-built, which meant that the same parts had widely different tolerances and fittings, making maintenance a pain. But that did not stop Captain Luisa Prospera from destroying 5 Umayyad mechs. Granted, 3 of them were hooked up to a scaffolding for repairs. She was the only Castilian mech warrior to defeat more than 2 battle mechs before she died because her actuators failed and was subsequently completely swarmed by tanks. I did a quick game of a lance of these guys, backed up by like 2 Corvins, I think, and I lost that game. But to be fair, the Reconquistas, they held their own for like 15 rounds. The mech is slow and it's prone to constant breakdown, yet it was exactly what the Castilians needed to turn the tide of their war. These machines were not the best, but they were mechs the Castilians could continuously produce, something the Umayyads did not have. And so the Reconquista created, the Castilians began their counterattack and slowly regained lost territory. Not long after, a third party came into the picture, the Hanseatic League. The League is the biggest deep periphery nation, and they intend to stay that way. When they discovered the warring nations of the Castilian cluster, they would selectively sell their advanced wares and mercenaries to both parties in hopes of keeping them preoccupied with each other. The back and forth within the Castilian cluster continued for 2 centuries until 3080, when Clan Goliath Scorpion came and conquered, establishing a Scorpio Imperio, later the Scorpion Empire. And now we can actually begin with the bug that was missed, the Arana. Goliath Scorpion, after they had invaded, was in a bad shape. Having been exiled from the home worlds, they effectively had to restart from scratch. The Castilian cluster did improve significantly after the clan came to power, but it was not comparable at all with other clan-based nations. With little access to clan technology, Goliath Scorpion could not hope to rebuild their Tumen, and so they looked to the newly conquered populace of the Castilian cluster to bolster their military for the time being. Using what little industry and technology were available, Goliath Scorpion created 2 mech models for use by the new Castilian Umayyad garrison caste, the Arana and the Reptar. The first 2 mechs Esperio Imperio built were militia mechs, combat mechs that were usually built on an industrial mech chassis. The Arana is based on the clan technology and is built on a quad industrial mech chassis rated for 40 tons. Powered by a 200 fusion engine, the mech is decently fast, able to travel 86 kilometers per hour. The Arana, being a quad-leg mech, means that it can do sidesteps and get up without having to roll the dice. It is only armed with 3 clan ER mediums mounted on a quad battle mech turret, giving it a full 360 degrees of rotation. But going with the image we have here, right, it looks like that this thing needs like 2 people to pilot, but that's not how it works, at least with how the game rules are. But I don't know, maybe it's like the maintenance access or something, who knows. Arana pilots will usually take hull down positions behind hills and buildings, exposing only the turret, making it very effective at holding a line, especially against lighter mechs. Being built on an industrial mech chassis means that it does not support ejection seats. Fortunately for the pilots, the cockpit was designed in a way to allow the installation of an ejection system. The basic fire control system was also upgraded to an advanced one, giving it the same targeting capability as a normal battle mech. 15 heat sinks cooled the machine, with 9.5 tons of Industry Z heavy industrial armor protecting it. Most likely due to the shift of technological basis from Innisphere to Clan and the fact that there is only one factory building these, the parts of the mech are somewhat proprietary, making sourcing parts difficult. The environmental sealing is also of low quality, making traversing through hazardous environments very risky. Now, the Arana does not have any variants, but it does have a successor, the Tolva, which means hopper. And guess what? It can jump. On the whole, it is identical to the Arana, but built on a proper combat chassis, covered in 9.5 tons of standard armor, equipped with a targeting computer and 5 jump jets, allowing 150 meters of jumping distance. This jumping capability would allow one to hypothetically plug up a hole. Let's say one Arana died next to it, or Tolva, I guess, so maybe another one can just quickly jump over, take its position, and make sure the wall that they're holding holds. By 3101, the industrial capability of the Castilian cluster had significantly improved, resulting in better parts standardization and quality, which eliminated the flaws of the Arana. These two mechs were designed to work in tandem, the Reptar and Cazador mechs. The Arana Tolva would be the wall that holds off incoming threats, while the lighter model picks them off from a distance. Since I mentioned them, let's just go straight to them. The Reptar, as mentioned, is the sniper of the two. Like the Arana, it is built on an industrial mech chassis, but 5 tons lighter. Instead of a fusion engine, the Reptar uses a much simpler Fuel EX-175 series fuel cell engine. A fuel cell converts a fuel, usually hydrogen, into electricity. We have an example in real life in the form of the Toyota Mirai. Toyota is also experimenting with a hydrogen engine, an internal combustion engine that uses hydrogen as fuel. It's pretty cool. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, which makes it an excellent fuel choice. If not nuclear, many power grids and large naval vessels will utilize hydrogen as a main energy source. For mechs, hydrogen power has 2 advantages: cost and temperature. This system is much simpler when compared to a fusion reactor and emits little to no heat. The only byproduct of a fuel cell is water. Why is it not more common in mechs, you may ask? Well, fuel cell systems tend to be heavier than fusion systems. It also has less range because, well, it needs fuel. For example, compared to an internal combustion engine, a mech with internal combustion engine can travel around 600 kilometers, right? And I'm assuming this is like the same engine size, right? A mech with an internal of the comparable engine size could travel 600 kilometers per hour, while the fuel cell can only travel 450 kilometers per hour. But back to the Reptar. The mech using the cheaper alternative most likely means this is the more numerous model that the Garrison cast uses. The fuel system gives the Reptar the same 86 km per hour top speed as the Arana. For weapons, it is armed with a proto-mech AC-8 and 2 light machine guns. By this time, the Scorpions had begun to phase out their proto-mech forces. To not waste the abundant spare parts still around, they utilized them in their mechs, and in this case, the AC-8. The 2 light machine guns were there for infantry and light-skinned vehicles. These weapons were aimed with an advanced fire control system much like the Arana, but lacked an ejection system, so you wouldn't want to be inside one of these things when they blow up. The 2 heat sinks are just enough to cool down the AC-8, and the mech is protected with only 5 tons of the same Industry Z heavy industrial armor. Much like the Arana, the environmental ceilings are of poor quality and part sourcing is also difficult. The Cazador is a significant upgrade over the Reptar. It now features a proper Battletech chassis, a supercharged 175 fusion engine, which can increase its maximum speed to 108 km per hour. It is now armed with proper Battletech weapons, such as an LBX AC-10 and 2 small pulse lasers. It is cooled down with 10 heat sinks and is protected with 6 tons of standard armor. Well, we went down a bit of a rabbit hole there, didn't we? Just to cover the bug that I miss. From Space Spain to 2 extra mechs that no one probably has never heard of. But it is a shame though that the Reconquista, they didn't modernize it. You think they would do that? This is their first mech. They're built using the bad industry that they have, yet they still managed to make a mech. But they didn't seem to use that name or make a new one based on clan technology. This mech really saved their world, really. It turned the tide of the war of the Umayyads. You think they would keep that name alive at the very least, It's like a pride thing or historical thing, Surprised they didn't do that, but that's something riders can do in the future if they need to make up a new TRO or something. Modernize the Reconquista. Give it the treatment it deserves. Man, these deep periphery stuff they're kind of cool, huh? Kind of want to make a deep periphery force now, or even made up nation. Made up mechs, deep periphery mechs. I like militia mechs. Militia mechs are so cool. I like them. Just cheapo stuff, but they're good at what they're good, because out here in the frontier, having a bad mech is better than having no mech at all. I like it. I like the idea behind them. For the militia mechs, though, I did a quick game with them, like with all 4 models, and you know what? They're pretty good. They're pretty decent. Like at least the Arana and the Tolva. The Tolva, the Tolva. At least against a force of similar BV. So I face a Hatchetman, a Hollander, an Uller, and a Whitworth, I think. And unlike the first game, we actually won this fight, right? Granted, I think it was mostly luck that gave me the win. Like the Whitworth died in a single turn because I alpha struck it with everyone in the lands. Like he just kind of ran ahead. So everyone just kind of shot him and he just blew up. Then you got the Uller. He got shot by the Reptar, the Cazador. It might be the Cazador. He got sniped, basically, and that snipe, it might be the Reptar, actually. But whatever, that snipe got a critical hit on the Uller, which set off the ammo explosion thingy, and that thing just ran away. And then you got the final one, which is the Hollander. The Hollander was pretty bad, actually. Like the Hollander and the Hatchman did the most damage. They were the most biggest threats in the lands that we were faced. But anyway, the Hollander failed a supercharger roll and then fell down, and then we just like shot it, and then it broke its weapons, and then it got up, ran away. The Hatchman was bad. The Hatchman was like basically the killer of everybody. I lost the Reptar. Reptar died because, well, the Reptar and the Cazador, they're not particularly armored. Like they are like pure snipers, flankers. If you can go around them, and maybe the Cazador can do that since it's a supercharger. So if you want to use these things, sniper or flanker. Probably the Reptar will be sniper, while the Cazador can go around and flank people, because it can do it. It's gonna AC 10. That's pretty good damage right then. And once you break up the armor or whatever, just shotgun them, boom, bada bing, dead. But yeah, the Reptar died, unfortunately. Didn't really have much armor. Pilot was also kind of bad. Blew up. The Cazador, I did try to flank around a bit, but his leg got shot, and then his left arm also went off, which meant that he could not shoot the AC 10, because the AC 10 is like holding his body up. Could still shoot the small pulse laser, which did some supplemental damage. But the Arana and Tolva, they were so tanky for like against this BV. They were so tanky. Like they just refused to die. They kept like the Hatchman particularly. They kept the Hatchman busy long enough for the Cazador to slowly chink off the health of the Hatchman. And if the Hatchman or the Hollander got like a lucky shot, and that fell the Tolva or the Arana, since they're quad mechs, they can just get up for free. If quad mechs, I didn't actually know this. Maybe I just didn't notice it or something. You don't need to roll to get up, so they're pretty good. Like I might start using them. I might. It's really good, especially for like if you're running a campaign and your pilots are bad or something. You can just shove them in a quad mech, and they could be a factor. They really could be a factor, since again, if they fall down, they don't need to roll. They just get up automatically for free. It's awesome. Love them. Quad mechs, I'm warming up to them. I don't like having more than 2 legs, but you know what? They pretty good. That's it for this week's pilots. Thanks for joining. Man, taking my time with what do you call that, with the script now. And I'm basically doing video every 2 weeks now. 1 week I'm just writing, researching, whatever. it really gives me enough time to like explore like these things, like actually test them in a game, because I never did that before. If I've used them before, I've used them. If I don't, I don't. But now that I have enough time, I've given myself enough time to do so. Yeah, I tested the mechs, and I would have just automatically said these guys are bad because they're like militia mech, whatever. But in an actual game against a similarly sized force, again, the Arana and Tolva were pretty good. They were very good for what they are. So this is cool. I like this. Gives me enough time to explore things and try to, I don't know, expand on stuff as much as I can to spice things up, pad things, make it longer. Anyway, that's that. Thanks for joining, everybody. If you'd like to see more Mech overviews, do consider joining the Jupiter fleet. We always need more pilots over here. Keep building the number up. So once we get to Terra, we can get them pretty good. Also, remember to like. That will help push this out to other people to join the fleet. The fleet grows ever bigger. But if you're not into the whole mech things, which is kind of weird if you already reached this point, guess what? I stream my game, my simulations, right? My battle simulations every weekdays, basically, right? Skyrim, that simulates, survival in the wilds when you have little to no resources, right? And I got Mech Warrior 5 right now going through the Kerensky DLC, which is one something. I mean, I think I got like 8 missions left, so I think we're getting somewhere with that, right? We're getting somewhere with that. And I got drawing as well, and then we got multiplayer games, and then I think usually one more day. I don't know what to do with that one. Maybe I'll think of something. But yeah, that's that. You can watch me stream if you're into that kind of stuff. I say that like it's a sex thing. Speaking of sex things, that doesn't happen in the Discord, in the public Jupiter Jovian, what do you call that? Communication network. You can come in there, not that kind of come. Go in there and chat with me, with people. Share your memes. Don't do sex things. That's illegal. You'll be banned if I find out. You better not do it, man. Don't do it. It's illegal. I'll shoot you. Glory to the Jupiter colony. Glory to every single Jovian and the fleet. Take care. Keep fighting those Earth noids. Don't die. That's not how it usually goes, but whatever. I haven't recorded in a while. That's the problem with me taking my time with recording stuff. I sometimes forget how it actually goes. But anyway, don't die.